Lucas Killian, the 15-year-old inventor and entrepreneur, had just finished the project he had set out to accomplish when he was 11 years old. A collar with a voice modulator to specifically turn a dog's barks, yips, and whines into simplified human speech. Finally, he would be able to get to the bottom of his childhood companion's fears. Barkley, the Jack Russell Terrier, was such a joyful puppy when the Killian family went to meet with the dog breeder's new litter that he outshined all of his brothers and sisters. After trotting up to Lucas and dropping his two front legs into a let's play position, then running around Lucas's as they chased each other across the field, it was no contest. The family fell in love with Barkley then and there and adopted him the same day. So the family had always thought it was strange that, almost moments after they brought him home, he had started acting so fearful and fidgety. When Barkley was just 1 year old, he began often hiding beneath the bed in the master bedroom and growling nervously while staring into the backyard. Despite the family's numerous attempts to bring their poor puppy to trainers, dog parks, veterinarians, and even animal psychologists, they were completely helpless to change Barkley's fearful demeanor. One particularly nightmarish event occurred when Barkley got kidney stones and was brought to an emergency vet since the family could not properly diagnose him. The veterinarian accused the family of allowing someone to practice surgical techniques on Barkley when he discovered the dog had an old incision on his lower back that appeared to have been seared shut. It coincided with a missing kidney.
"What in God's name is wrong with you people? No wonder your dog is so paranoid. Give me one good goddamn reason I shouldn't contact the authorities right now and have you arrested for animal abuse."
"What? What are you accusing us of?" shouted Lucas's father.
"The records say you had this dog since he was 6 months old, right? So when did you do it? When did you open him up and take out his kidney? Who the hell is the maniac backyard surgeon? Tell me, now!"
The fight raged on, and eventually the vet did contact the authorities, but the allegations being thrown at the family could not be proven. The surgical incision and missing kidney were clear, but the police said unless the vet had evidence that the act was committed by someone within the family, or Barkley was in dire health, there was nothing they could do. Lucas cried on the way home for his companion, and Lucas's mother wept as well. "Barkley, get out here, you dumb dog," called Lucas as he climbed down onto his knees and leaned over to find the 9-year-old Pooch in his normal hiding space beneath Lucas's parents' bed. "I've got something extra special for you today." As usual, Lucas had to grab the dog by his collar and pull him out from his hiding space to get him to come out. Lucas brought Barkley into the living room and sat him down on the couch, where he petted and kneaded the dog and tried to calm him down, but Barkley just kept staring into the densely wooded backyard, growling nervously. Slipping the voice modulator collar onto Barkley, Lucas whispered to his companion, "What do you see, boy? What is it?" Naturally, Barkley couldn't understand, but as the dog whimpered and growled, the same two words crackled through the modulator's tiny stereo.
"Something there! Something there!"
Lucas jumped for joy for the briefest of moments when he realized that his invention had worked. He didn't care so much about the money or pride of creating something wonderful. What he cared about was the fact that he could now figure out his dog's troubles. But when those words dawned on him and his face paled, a cold snap purged through his body and covered him in goosebumps as he too began to stare out the window.
"Something there! Something there!"
Barkley just kept repeating those words through the crackling voice box. "All right, boy, we're going outside. I'm going to show you there's nothing to be afraid of." Lucas quickly got Barkley's leash and, despite having to pull his companion along, they began walking deep into the forest that Lucas had made forts in and played hide-and-go-seek in as a child.
"No, no, no!"
the dog bleated.
"Me hide, not make angry, not bother, no!"
The further they went into the forest, the more anxious Barkley got, now trying to sit down every few feet in protest of being taken on this walk. but Lucas pulled him along, ready to burst into tears, hoping there was some way to fix his broken dog.
They hear!
Boomed the voice box as Barkley let out a howl like he had never had before.
They hear!
He bolted back towards the house, the leash slipping out of Lucas's grasp, the dog lost from sight in just a matter of minutes. Lucas looked around and saw nothing, baffled by the dog's behavior, and then he heard the rustle of a bush and the snap of a few twigs in the ground from what seemed like just a few dozen feet ahead.
"Ah!" he screamed, and turned around, sprinting as fast as he could for a full minute until he'd cleared the forest, promptly running into his house and locking every door. Lucas watched the backyard for a good 5 minutes before he finally calmed down. Nothing seemed to have pursued him, and he started to think his imagination was playing tricks on him because of his overly stressful dog's behavior. "Barkley!" Lucas called through the hallways of his home, wondering if the dog had snuck into the house before he had. No response. "Barkley!" Lucas called again, just as he peered beneath his parrot's bed, but no dog was to be found. "Knock, knock," sounded off a harsh rapping against the front door. "Be right there!" yelled Lucas, jogging to the door quickly thereafter. But no one was there. It wasn't all that uncommon for the children in the cul-de-sac to play ding-dong ditch, but this was the middle of the afternoon, and Lucas suddenly filled with an eerie sensation. "Hello?" Lucas called through the front door, not daring to unlock it.
Master, I am here. Please let me in.
The words were clear as a day and spoken properly, yet as Lucas peered through the glass panes of the door, he could see no dog. "Knock, knock," came the same exact rasping from the back door.
Master! Master! Let's play.
Lucas grabbed the phone and hit dial, ready to call the police or his father or his neighbors. His mind was running at 1,000,000 miles per hour. He didn't know what to do. He hissed an electronic scream from the phone when it was turned on, indicating a malfunction. It was useless. Knock, 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 knock. This time something or someone was knocking on the windows, all of them. "Get out of here! I already called the police! They're coming right now! Get out of here!" yelled the helpless teen in a desperate bid. Silence. Lucas stood next to the front door with his back to the wall, clinging to his chest as his heart felt like it was going to explode. The deadbolt on the front door suddenly turned on its own. Lucas grabbed the deadbolt and tried to lock it again, but it simply wouldn't budge. The front door opened despite Lucas pushing on it with all his might, and the pitter-patter of what must have been dozens of footsteps accompanied by the creaking of floorboards could be heard all throughout the house. Lucas tried to scream, but he was rendered entirely mute, as if noise-canceling waves were eliminating all of the sound that came from him, and him only. Lucas shut his eyes tight, but shortly after a pair of fingers forced his lids open. He was staring up at a small army of creatures that were shaped like humans but had no eyes, nose, mouth, or ears, were covered in wrinkles that resembled a tarp, and were a grayish gunmetal color.
Hello, Master,
came the crackle from Lucas's invention as one of the strange beings held the device in his hands, not even having to hold it to its throat to make it produce sound. Lucas screamed and cried, but there was still no sound. He felt his body being lifted into the air by countless hands and could do nothing but watch as they carried him out into the forest in his backyard. "Lucas!" called Mrs. Killian after returning home from work. Her son usually greeted her upon arrival. Stepping into her son's room, she looked in horror and gasped, "Lucas!" Lucas's body was stretched out on the floor, his own doggy voice modulator strapped around his neck. It must have shorted because the body's throat was blown open, and darkened blood clotted and coagulated around the wound. Oddly, the boy's palms were colored in a dark shade of gray. Barkley could be heard whimpering in the other room.